But as you're well aware now, I'm recording. Get in while the iron is hot. Cold opening this week. Magdalena has caught a raccoon, but it's not dead. They gotta put it in the pot and put the lid on it. I will be Magdalena, and I will be Mitchell, and I would like to be Marilyn as the leg. Alright? And action.
Magdalena, it's got away. You caught a blooming raccoon, and it's not even dead.
Ouch. Ow, my vines.
Oh, I'm gonna get it in a trap with my elastic bands and put it all around its head and trap it. And Mitchell, you try and put it in the pot, and I'm gonna grab it. Oh, you silly woman, you gotta let it run all over our house and take poops everywhere.
Please don't walk through the nettle patch again. Please, Mother, please.
That seems to be an irrelevancy at this time. With a raccoon on the loose, I'm gonna unstrap you, Marilyn, and if I fall over, it's your fault. Catch that raccoon! Strap.
Come here, you. Oh, gosh.
I've got an
Oh,
idea.
dear. Oh, look, I got it.
Oh, you got it, great. Throw it in the pot. Throw it.
No, I lost it again.
Oh, it's escaped again. Oh, don't worry. I trapped it by putting it in my shoe. Marilyn, I'm going to throw it in the pot and you put the lid on, okay? It's in the pot.
The water's cold.
Yeah, we're not trying to cook it yet. Just put the blooming lid on it before it escapes.
I can't find the lid.
It's here. I'm handing
Is
it
this?
to you,
Oh,
right? No, that's the lid off the bin.
Oh,
Oh,
I've dropped it.
Oh, damn.
Oh.
Magdalena, can you pass it to me? I can't really reach it or anything. Oh, it's okay. I've got the lid now.
Oh,
Ching.
knock the pan over.
Oh, don't worry. Oh, don't worry. I picked it back up and I put the lid on, and the raccoon or whatever animal it is now safely inside. The end. Maude! It's a Maude Cast, Season 2, Straight Woman or Villain. Possibly. I'm flustered by serial killers. Not thinking of the children, really. Internal tempest of madness. Low-key hostility is a go-to. 5 a.m. riser and house cleaner. Niece to Rex Turnbull. Maude Cast 2.
Good job.
Digital high five.
Good job.
So there's the cold opening in the bag. I think we're really getting to grips with those.
Yes.
Theme tune in the bag. Episode 13. Unlucky for some. Unlucky for those that miss it.
Yeah. Lucky for us. There'll be plenty of Maude.
Well, surprisingly little, to be honest. But we'll deal with that later. Hello, good morning, and Nedcom. Sound quality. First of all, we want to describe but not apologise for the sound quality of episode 12. Because Stamp's grandchildren came around and smashed up our studio, there is distortion over the entire episode. No apologies. No apologies. You knew what you signed up for. Brought to you by the Maude Cast Corporation, a division of Dibney Multi-Global Conger Eels, etc., TV shows. Lost, Twin Peaks, Vivacious. How is Viv? How's Vivacious? You had any vibe?
She's good.
Yeah?
Yes, I have a quote.
Go ahead.
That me and Natal keep saying. She said something about a bodega grabber the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Which is one of those things you pick things up off the floor with, I think. She said the bodega grabber cannot lie, but it can omit the truth.
Speaking of highly poignant phrases, not to skip over Cerebus the Aardvark or Scott Walker R.I.P., but Jacques the Pen Derrida from the movie Requiem for a Dream. Here's the quote for this week.
Psychoanalysis has taught that the dead, a dead parent for example, can be more alive for us, more powerful, more scary than the living. It is the question of ghosts.
Doesn't get more on the nose than that, does it?
No, that's very Maude. In the context of the real world, I would agree. But in the context of Springfield, the idea is that people, the memories and the legacies and the myths live on Whereas I think Ned vaguely mentions Maude a couple of times in like the 12 years since she's died. And other than that, maybe like Homer twice and Rod or Todd maybe once or twice. So nobody's talking about Maude.
So the dead parent is not more alive. She's well forgotten except for those Treehouse of Horror appearances and when her son, in the grips of a fever, may or may not see her.
I guess it's not a mining ground for Simpsons humour, is it? Widowing and orphaning the nicest kids in town.
I mean, it could be, but they think that, you know, our society is just a little bit too nice for that. In the old days, it would have been fair game. It would have been mocked mercilessly.
Yes.
And Zizek would be applauding that, and I'm sure Jacques Derrida would too. Don't want to put words into his mouth.
She lives on as a ghost, but due to supernatural means, not due to people remembering her.
Yes. She's not driving the narrative from beyond the grave, except for in those few instances when she actually physically, quote unquote, shows up. So it seemed like Jack was in the right area at one point, but maybe not.
Not today.
Not today, Jack. Not today. Faintly hear him spinning in his grave. But you know what, Jack? We're going to treat you as we would treat our regular friends and tell you when you're speaking gubbins. Here's a question for you. What was the French comic reference that in Maude's diary from last week that she couldn't remember the name of the French comic, but it was her favourite comic?
It was something along the lines of Garfield, but French.
Oh, Garfield. Garlic Field.
Le Garfield.
Oh, I do not like this lasagna because it's Italian food and not French. Give me some petit pois. Give me a plate of petit pois.
Le deteste Mondays.
Exactly. Exactly. Give me a number between 1 and 244 for the Mauditorium. Between 1 and 244.
144.
144. As he scrolls through and he finds it here. Do we need any more bread on an endless loop? See also 131, a mental bread-getting Groundhog Day. Always think about the present or bread and a lot of Jesus, religious goofball.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, I don't think I need a lot of context for that. Is it from the game she's in?
Yes, sure.
Is it? No. Where she comes down the stairs and says something.
I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to stop you. Keep going.
That's all I can remember from that virtual Springfield game. I think I might just be loosely making this up now. I thought in that game she came into the room and said something like, "Do we need any bread?" But I think it might have been about lemonade.
I don't know. It says C131, so let's do a call back to 131 in this list and see if there's anyone got fat on plain white bread. Now that one's not as fun because we talked about Maude's fatness in her diary last week. So you've got a theory that at some point she's so into bread that she's going to get a big old bread gut.
And she did. But outside of that, I don't know what anything was about. What was the Groundhog Day reference?
A mental bread-getting Groundhog Day.
Where she's never satisfied.
Exactly, yes.
Are we supposed to discuss the idea, or is there another question coming?
You suggested at one point that Maude was only ever thinking about two things, the present or bread and Jesus.
Yeah, I'm going to alter it slightly. I think at this point now, we're in season 5. Maybe she's getting slightly more capacity to think, and maybe she won't be standing motionless in the background, but that's just optimism talking.
Maybe.
I'm pretty sure it does, just to continue on as we know and love.
Nice. So that was a bit of a bread end, I think.
Yes.
But I don't care. We got a couple of minutes of Maude content out of it, and that's all I care about. So, as one thing that the people have probably noticed by now is that we're clearly operating in a different kind of phone network, and the reason for that is, of course, we are in jail. So thankfully they've given us this time to do the podcast because they know how important it is culturally. But yes, Judge Roswell finally lost patience with us, not putting on the 2-man, 1-man show or paying any of the debts for the Sphinx in the Dougie or for the abuse to Stamp, alleged abuse to Stamp. And so now we are in prison, which is in one way is good because we're no longer in a building that reeks of milk. But yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
Like Johnny Cash recording live from Folsom Prison.
Well, to be honest, live from Folsom Prison, we've been given a chance, Nathan, as you know, because first of all, we're in jail for non-payment of fines, but the stamp case was dropped in a wild turn of events. Apparently, you cannot send your nephews around to smash up the houses of the people that are being accused of you without it interfering on the case. Also, the footage showed that Stamp had actually passed out in the storeroom and was never on any of the rides. And apparently, it's not illegal to burn your own building to the ground, as long as you don't do any insurance scams. And of course, we don't believe in insurance because it's a form of gambling. Stamp's still on the run.
I think I can see him outside. There's something in the tree and it doesn't smell right.
Like literally doesn't smell right, or like doesn't smell like right, like like this is weird.
Yeah, like it's out of place.
Wow.
Bags of cream. Old cream.
So there's somebody hiding in your garden throwing bags of old cream at you.
Screaming, "I'm Stamp, you'll never catch me."
I mean, I have to say, it would take a Sherlock-level genius to put these clues together and work out what had gone on. But of course, you mean that happened before you got sent down for non-payment of fines.
Yes, that was a memory.
That was a memory. But we have been told that we can get out of jail if we do manage to put on the one-man, two-man show, Maude Flanders' Life After Death, that you've been writing for a few months. So please tell me that you've made some progress in the writing of that play, because I don't want to spend the next decade of my life in jail.
Well, there's been a mix-up. I thought I was asked to create a one-man, true-man show. So I've rewritten the entire script and swapped out Curry for Flanders Goodman.
Oh my goodness. So let's just go ahead as planned. So what we'll do is in the next couple of days, for the governors of the prison, we're going to put on a two-man, one-man show of the Truman Show, but Maude Flanders is going to be the Jim Carrey character. Is that pretty much what we're talking about here?
Yes, it's the two-man, one-man, true-man show.
Exactly. The two-man, one-man, Truman Goodman show.
Yes.
Good man. Now, once again, we're not going to get around to talking about the flan ball contest or those missing mugs. We have a customer who's out there that has been waiting now for those mugs for several weeks. Apologies, the mugs are in the post, and by post we mean they were smashed to bits when the staff tried to stampede out of the burning building that Nathan committed self-arson to. Apparently, again, as I said, not illegal. So hopefully this time next week we'll be out of prison.
Yeah, the mugs are being sent, they'll just need to be assembled.
Assembled from multiple intricate parts.
Yes.
Well, that's about as much banter as really we can stretch out before we get into the content. But are you ready for the content ride of your life?
Yes.
Where are we up to, Nathan? Give us a little bit of a Maude cap.
There was a food fight. Homer and Flanders are best of friends, and from what we can see, Maude doesn't care for it too much, but she keeps it to herself mostly.
Keep stum.
Yes, she's not biting.
Clip 1. Ned is on a tower shooting into what we don't know, and which is never a good way to start any real idea. If anybody's on a tower just randomly taking pot shots at things, that generally means things have gone awry. But in this case, it's a dream. Neddy, arms aloft, screams, "Ah!" and he rises wide-eyed. Maude leans over and grabs his shoulder reassuringly. No irritation at all at being woken. "What's the matter, Ned?" "Ned, I think I hate Homer Simpson." Now, Maude, slightly taken aback, but she smiles. She smiles in there. There's definitely a smile, followed by the socially acceptable shock that she was kind of expected to show.
That's interesting. Yeah, the whole dream is Ned shooting. I'm surprised it's still on Disney Plus and they've not chopped stuff out like Channel 4 do. Don't watch it on Channel 4. He's just shooting people in a crowd saying, "That's Homer too." And then a postman shoots back and he wakes up. Yeah, I never noticed the smile.
It's just a quick one. I screenshotted it, but pretty much, if you look at my notes, Zasla, you'll see, but pretty much, just for a couple of frames, she's got this look on her face of like, "I know where you're coming from, Ned, because I too hate Homer Simpson, but I can never say it."
That's interesting. Yeah, I thought it was just same old Maude. Oh no, oh dear Neddy.
No, this is a brand new.
Yeah, she's still hiding her truth, but we can see it.
Clip 2. Homer is joyfully stood at the door of the Flanders. This is the big one. He shouts, "Let's put in a 9 at the pitch and putt." And Ned, family on board, blasts through the garage door full speed. Homer turns and pursues him with golf clubs in his hand, a la Terminator 2, as we mentioned last week, shouting, "Ned, Neddy." Rod looks out the window. "He's gaining on us." Whiny little Todd is, I'm scared. Maude grasps Ned's arm and says, "Come on, Ned, move this thing." A real desperation on Maude's face. Now the tables have turned, unlike a few weeks ago when the Flanders family were pursuing Homer to try and save his rotten soul. Now he's pursuing them for fun times and goodness. But Ned takes a little bit of a stab at the Suzuki Manufacturing Corporation and says, "I can't, it's a Geo." A Geo being a crappy 3-cylinder car from the late 80s. Homer manages to slam his golf clubs into the back of the car and hang on and begins to climb up the back of the car. Flanders does a quick 160 and rolls off Homer into the street. Homer's face down on the ground, and then he looks up and says, "Guess he didn't see me." Ned turns to Maude and says, "We did it." And Maude, with a calm duck face, says nothing, as you'd expect from Maude. She just smiles.
Yeah, that's all Terminator based, I believe, which means Maude is the Sarah Connor, which is unlikely to ever be the case.
Ned in this case is then Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes.
Which is very apt because he's buff, right? He's ripped.
Yeah, like it's that other car chase, and this time we see her inside the car, but we see what Maude's thinking. Last time we didn't see what she was thinking. We were saying that she was scared when they were going through the train carriages. Would she be up for it? And this time solidifies that she wants him to go faster. All they're trying to do is it's the next door neighbour. They can't do this every time he appears. It's so wildly unrealistic.
It is somewhat unrealistic, yes.
They destroyed the garage door, and all Maude wants is him to go faster.
To get away from him. It is a short-sighted solution, isn't it, to be honest? It's not a well-thought-out long-term solution that you'd expect from the Flanders. Flanders, pretty level-headed, thinking of solutions. But in this episode, we see both Maude and Neddy losing their ish more than once. But then that's the danger of dealing with Homer J. Simpson, isn't it?
It is. She's panicked. She's really panicked. This is the worst. She can't physically bear the thought of seeing him. She's probably hoped that Ned would somehow kill him in that moment, with him swinging off the back of the car. Go faster.
Go faster, go faster. Turn, do a 180, and then reverse over him.
Yeah.
Reverse over him. Hear him snap. Hear all of his bones snap. Dough crunch. Always last words, dough crunch. There's a second part to this clip, though. It was a long one. I had to stop and take a pause in the middle because the first half was so rich, but the second half had almost as much. Only a second after getting rid of Homer J, Chief Wiggum, we'll touch more on him later in his relationship to the Flanders Goodman family. Only for a second, Clancy Wiggum comes up behind them and signals them to pull over. Maude and the boys watch on in silence as Wiggum relation makes Ned stand on one leg. He's tired a little bit from all the exhaustion, but he's doing a good job. And the time-tested drunk test of getting someone to stand on one leg and touch their nose, scientifically waterproof. And Neddy says, "Tell you, officer, I'm not hepped up on goofballs." Wiggum's already started writing a ticket for him as the buzz from the First Church of Springfield, driven by Otto, comes by. Lovejoy's on there. Skinner and his mum's on there. And Lovejoy says, "Ned Flanders, I would never have imagined." Gasp! Ned, at this point, of course, shocked, loses his balance and falls over. Wiggum shouts, "High as a kite, everyone," points and shouts, "Goofballs." Maude, for the whole thing, has been in the car with Rod and Todd, but she appears to laugh when Ned falls over. And again, it's hard to tell, but it really does appear like Maude has a good old giggle when Ned falls over in front of the policeman and is accused of being high as a kite in front of the church. What's going on there?
I picked up on her facial expressions in the car, and I agree that she has a moment of somewhat joy. She's initially sort of concerned, but I imagine it's a concern of what if people see us. It's not about Ned himself or the family image. And then when the bus comes past and everybody laughs, like the worst has happened now, so she can laugh along with them. Or maybe she thought she needed to laugh at him and like kick him while he's down and laugh at him with everybody else.
Jump ship. So like, I'm not with him. I'm not with stupid. I'm stupid, and I'm not with him. He's stupid, and I'm not with him.
Yes.
Yeah. So at least a couple of times that Maude has laughed when it was inappropriate, but this time, you know, her husband is being mocked openly by her entire community, and she still can't stifle a grin and a laugh. But all changes in clip 3. Go ahead.
My last point about that is the other option I had about her demeanour is that she's trying to keep Rod and Todd calm like she did with the marshmallows when they lost the leftorium of the house. Maybe she's trying to keep things running smooth and she's not mocking her husband.
Possibly, but you know, that's you have to be careful that's very open to misinterpretation should you be laughing at keep your spirits up, boys, but let's not laugh directly at your father. Let's laugh at this unrelated incident. Yeah, maybe she was doing like a funny animal dance inside the car that we didn't quite see.
Maybe.
Unrelated funny thing. It's unlikely though. So they roll around to the church in clip 3. Maude's in her Sunday best. She's got a nice pink cardigan and a ruffled shirt. Hers looking a little bit bigger than usual, if that's possible. Holding hands with Neddy. Glum looks all round. Ned, I can't do it, Maude. I can't face their accusing eyes. Maude, ever supportive, with her faith unshaken. Oh, don't worry, Ned. This is a house of love and forgiveness. The doors swing open, and then the congregation look back and all start whispering. In a way, you'd think you'd rock up a little early and get a little seat rather than turning up where the entire church is there ready to judge you. But you know, I'm not going to judge the Flanders like the rest of them are. So,
Yeah.
Did you hear what the whispers were?
I did. I got them written down.
Something like shun the non-believer or something like that.
It says, there he is, Ned Flanders, the fallen one, the evil one. I bet he's the one who wrote Homer all over the bathroom.
Yes.
Was that the whole clip? Yeah.
No, there's more. There's more. Because Homer beckons them over, but I thought I'd let you have a good run at that. We got a good view of the Flanders family all together in those desolate times, but hands held, glum faces, ready to face the music.
Yeah, this is the most supportive we've seen her so far. She's taking charge and saying, like, don't worry, Ned, everything will be fine. As opposed to him trying to look after the family. Like, she's looking after them now. And she's very loving in this moment. I don't think there's any personal gain right now. She's just being like a good wife and good partner for Ned.
It's not a power play. It's not a power play. She's not trying to take control of the family from the iron grip of Nedwood.
No, I think she's just, at least even if she wants them all to die, she must like them somewhat. She's grown fond of them over time. And the Sunday best outfit, if you remember the first episode where she mows the lawn, where they mow the lawns, how radically different the Sunday dress was compared to the one that she's wearing now. So they've obviously had more time to evaluate her character.
They're getting to grips with the core of Maude, as we are. And they are 5 seasons and 13 episodes in 12, because the disco student doesn't care. But there he is. So Ned Flanders goes in, and Ned pulls away from Maude, and he turns and says, oh, I think we should leave. Their heads are bowed, and they turn and head for the door, when Homer J, right from the front of the church, shouts, hey, Flanders, over here. I got us some kick-ass seats. Homer, oblivious again. This can't be very long after he threw that food into their face and barraged them with condiments. He shouts, come on over here. So they head over glumly and do the walk of shame through the middle of the church and sit in the pew as Homer guides them in.
Yeah, I realised this might be the first for us, because this clip happens directly after the last clip, the goofball clip. It's a good chunk of Maude, and that's why we split this episode into 2, because after the food fight, there isn't much that she's not in. There's the dream, and then there's the car chase, and then there's after the car chase, you go directly to the church.
So it's Maude panic.
When Ned says, let's leave, she doesn't question it, she just agrees and she's ready to go. Head down, full of shame and defeated immediately.
Yeah.
Like, oh, try.
There's a lot of Maude in here, but she's very much in her role as supportive wife and secondary character. Other than the point where she says no sugar and she has the interaction with Marge and Lisa last week, the rest of the time she's really just being there for Neddy. And as you said, she's grown to love these humans.
And she's only said one thing to him: this is a house of love and forgiveness, it'll be fine. And then they went inside and heard a few bad whispers, and Ned said let's leave, and she didn't try to get him to stay, she just said okay. And then it got worse because Homer shouted him over, and I can't remember 100%, but her and Ned share kind of look of we don't really have a choice here, do we? I got the impression she knew at that point they couldn't keep leaving the church, they'd have to go in and sit next to the Impson family.
In a way, it was kind of let's bite the bullet and face the music, because maybe they learned their lesson from earlier when the car was when they tried to run away in the car, and that didn't really have a long-term solution. But this is sooner or later we're going to have to get back on board with this congregation. We're not going to leave the church. And so, walk of shame, and they went in there. Yeah. However, have to say that what follows, Ned doesn't make things any better. So a sermon, Lovejoy's talking about a sermon that he's going to read entitled What Ned Did. I don't know if we get to ever hear that sermon. Lovejoy, looks out over the church, and Maude is somehow again still smiling. She has a grin on her face. At times she goes a little serious, but generally she seems quite laid back in this situation. And Lovejoy says, I'd like to publicly congratulate Homer Simpson on his recent charity work. I don't know what that's referring to. Maude's looking back as Homer is stood on the pews next to her, getting the adulation of the entire church. Ned ducks his head turtle-like into his top, and Homer's like, I live to give. And Maude's just staring at him. And then, Lovejoy says, let's bow our heads in a silent prayer. And Maude, she does the right thing. She wants to get back on board. She wants to, integrate herself back into this church community. So she closes her eyes as the rest of the family do. But Ned can't. Ned hears something, a little whistling sound, and he can't resist. He opens his eyes and turns, and he sees Homer's nose wobbling and the whistling sound, and it's clear Homer J is fast asleep. And Ned says your favorite line and my favorite line. What does he say, Nathan?
Breathe through your damn mouth.
Ned leaps up to his feet and screams, stop it. Breathe through your damn mouth. Homer J. Simpson. And Maude initially has no reaction, but then as the camera moves, we should just be able to see Maude, but we can't quite see her. She's out of shot. And so we're robbed of the Maude reaction to this. But what's going on? What would Maude's reaction be to Ned leaping to his feet and shouting, breathe through your damn mouth? Not only embarrassing them further, but also cussing in the house of the Lord.
I don't think she hates it, because again, this is her least favourite person outside of possibly a sister.
Satan.
Yes, Satan, Laurie Goodman, Homer Simpson, the unholy trinity of Maude.
Yes.
But when you see them from the side view of Homer breathing through his nose, Maude looks equally as furious as Ned does. She's clearly noticed it too, because she's got a frown on her face.
She's prepared to turn a blind eye because, and this is the difference between Maude and Ned in this situation, that Maude, she'd been pushed somewhat by Homer's antics, the food fight and the sugar thing, but Ned had been pushed further to his very limit, and he just lost it. Whereas Maude just had a little bit more in the tank. She was just able to see it out a little bit longer. Another 10 minutes and they could have begun the road back to salvation. But Ned, no, he blew his top. Now we know that's in there. We know that's in Neddy's personality. So that's maybe a difference, that Maude can keep that lid on the pressure cooker even in times of real stress.
Yeah, and it's also not Maude's problem really at any point. Ned knows that. Homer isn't interested in being friends with Maude. He didn't know her name earlier in the episode. is interested in hanging out with Ned, and Maude's just an unfortunate victim who's been swept up. Ned's the target. Maude could have just carried on with her life. If Homer had latched onto Maude, they wouldn't have gone for a family picnic. There's an episode much later, like just before she dies, where he turns to her and says "ma'am" and tips his hat, and she just shuts the blinds on him.
Yeah, I imagine she would have maced him. I imagine she would have had some kind of mace spray in her bag, and had he suggested a family picnic, she would have just sprayed it directly into his face, and that would have been the end of the episode.
Yeah, and if he'd come around to play golf, I imagine Maude would have just said no.
No, she may have taken the golf club and beaten him back to his own house with it as well, and Marge would have agreed. I think this would have been the rare times when the two ladies would have been like, that is exactly what Homer J. Simpson deserved.
Just wash your hands and get out.
Exactly. No nonsense. Well, just wash your hands and get out and breathe through your damn nose. That's a good indication of the difference between the two of them. A calmly delivered, aggressive line versus a angrily delivered, somewhat aggressive line also. But
it's also quite unfair how quickly everyone is willing to turn against Ned at the drop of a hat. They've seen Homer do so many things at this point, and not that like further in the future they elect Sideshow Bob as the mayor, but Ned gets nervous and falls over once and has an entire sermon written about him.
I love Joy.
Yeah, they do turn very quickly on him because, oh, how the mighty have fallen. He's the paragon of virtue. But what I imagine is that when the congregation then turn quickly on Ned, as they do with Helen Lovejoy particularly, is not very pleased, and none of them are very pleased. We imagine that Maude's probably stood up next to him, stood up straight, glaring at people and ready to point and say, "You leave Neddy alone." But there's not really a lot of chance for that because something else happens.
Yeah, she doesn't have to deliver a speech. She can continue to be passive as Homer redeems himself somewhat for the way he's behaved for the last 5 seasons.
Somewhat, slightly. But they just say a very, very nice thing about Ned. So Homer has had enough of this, and he steps up and he says, if everyone here were like Ned Flanders, there'd be no need for heaven because we'd already be there. Which is very sweet of Homer. And to be honest, if we are to believe that Homer is oblivious to the bad stuff he's done, then he's not actually been doing stuff to hurt Ned Flanders. He's just a very, very bad friend when he tries to be a good friend. But so then everybody very quickly, except for the kids who don't seem to smile at all, everybody else smiles. And so Maude smiles very widely, and even Marge smiles, and then the congregation led by Lenny say, let's forgive him. Lovejoy says they should forgive him and says we all owe Ned a heartfelt apology. We were wrong to doubt him. And Maude once again stands quietly by, smiling, vindicated. She smiles when it rains, and she smiles when it shines.
Yeah, from the point of Homer as well, I do think that he likes Ned, and it's similar to Grimy, where he comes in and Homer doesn't know what's wrong. He's worse when he's trying to be nice because he's oblivious to the feelings and the thoughts of other people. But in his head, he's being a good friend, and this is sort of the validation for that. Sort of probably how they continue to maintain some kind of friendship after this episode. Like, they needed Ned to think, oh, Homer likes me and he's not that bad. He's just done something very nice for me. It's
like, let's just keep him at an arm's length. Whereas Maude just has the low-key hostility which keeps Homer at bay, which is good. Ned's strategy that he developed was be like, smile and talk, but keep him at an arm's length. Don't accept any invitations. Don't begin any conversations that may lead you to doing any shared activities, and thus setting the status quo for the next many, many years.
Because they haven't been friends before this at all, but it's all sort of very normal now for them to be this level of friends in like a modern episode. They still do like the stupid Flanders stuff, but Homer and Ned are more friends, like sort of how Homer and Barney used to be in the early ones. Because I just think Ned's had too rough of a ride for Homer to just continue being the way he is and for it to still be funny.
I guess so. And one thing that strikes me is that just that kind of like friendly-ish neighbours thing would have been much easier to develop had Maude still been around. They could have really kind of taken that into some more interesting places if they'd kept that dynamic of the two families. But unfortunately, because of those 4K demands of Roswell and then the Fox network not liking it, we were robbed. We were robbed of many years of that sweet, sweet family paradigm.
I would argue that Maude was definitely made more interesting by being killed off. She was sort of made into a martyr. If she hadn't been killed off, she'd still be bunched with like Luann and Manjula and Helen, but Maude's sort of the unique one now. It's a shame that Edna died, because I think there was a lot of potential there.
Well, it's a weird one. The weird thing is, the interesting thing about, we had the promise of having 20 more years of Maude and the Flanders as being this nice next door neighbor family, and the stories that promised, but things took this wildly supernatural turn by having Maude die, but then them really liking her and bringing her back several times.
If Maude hadn't been killed, she'd have just been in the bundle of housewives with like Bernice Hibbert and Sarah Wiggum, but they killed her off, so she got some kind of legacy. I'm going to go back on what I said at the start about everybody forgetting about her. It's sort of like she's got a legacy now. You could say to somebody who hasn't watched much of The Simpsons, like Maude Flanders, and they might say, oh, is that Ned's wife who died? But they're not going to know, like, Cookie Kwan.
They won't know Cookie Kwan. The Kwan cast.
Yes, one day. So yeah, Maude. But the sad one is Edna, because I think that had a lot of unfulfilled potential. If they'd have done that, because Ned's, between Maude and Edna, there's like 12 seasons, I think. So if they'd have done the Ned and Edna thing much earlier, which they didn't do because they had their whole Edna and Skinner thing going on, that for some reason they completely changed their minds on eventually. But if they'd have moved it forward, there would have been a lot of, because there's some nice stuff about like Edna trying to teach Rod and Todd how to sort of be more social and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff that they could have done, because Edna was not Maude, so the whole dynamic changed as her being the next door neighbour to Homer. And like Bart, for example, like now Mrs. Krabappel lives next door. I was going to say it only lasted like 3 seasons because she died.
It's a weird one. I don't know if they would have continued it much longer, because there's such a weird dynamic. It very much, unlike the rest of Springfield, real life kind of imposed itself on that relationship, because it was a real life reason why Maggie Roswell didn't continue and therefore Maude was killed off. And then there was a real life reason why Edna was killed off. And so it's very unusual in that story there actually is heavily buffeted by real life concerns, and it's led to Ned having this weird life that just would not have happened in universe life, that just wouldn't have happened had things just run smoothly. Like Mo just has his bar all the time. If for some reason Mo had to lose his bar in season 11, and then he would have gone on a different life and then lost that as 5-10 seasons later, that would have been a very different character path. Though, to be honest, I'm not sure how much of an effect it's really had on Ned.
Well, the whole Edna thing is strange in itself. Maude died because of real-life factors, and Ned and Edna got together in an episode, and then that episode ended with Comic Book Guy saying there was going to be a public vote, like, do you want them to stay as a couple? So the fans voted, should they stay together? And so that could have been different too. Like, Ned and Edna could have just been, like, broken up and moved away from each other, and Edna might not have affected the Flanders story at all. But then they stayed together, and then Edna did die because of real-life factors. It was all very turbulent.
It's weird, isn't it? Listen, we got about 5 more minutes, and I don't want to push those beautiful face-forward Simpsons one more week. Let's get to those last few, although I have noticed you've thrown in a new one after this that won't appear today. But let's go for the last few. I'm going to share my screen, and you give me your 2 cents on these face-forward Maude Flanders. So what's going on in that one? There.
The left one is Ned in a Maude Praiseland mask, and the right is the woman who shouted fire to have the t-shirts launched, so she has like a 20% responsibility in Maude's death. She was voiced by the woman who was brought in to voice Maude after Maggie Roswell left. She also voices a woman who Ned goes on a date with later on after Maude's death.
What's that woman's name? Can you remember?
Yes, Marcia Mitzman Gavin.
I see. Very good. We'll come to her soon. Her moment in the sun will arrive, probably in about 15 episodes of the Maude Cast. She'll get her little time in the sun, almost like when Ringo Starr got sick on that Beatles tour. and that dude had to sit in, and he got his
Just like
moment, in the sun. All right, was it beautiful to see the Ned Flanders dressed up horrifically as his dead wife from a face-forward angle, plus Maude's actual murderer. But let's move on. Not that one. Okay, here we have, what many people see as Maude Flanders' greatest after-death appearance. Spoilers.
Yes, I enjoy it. It adds a whole new level of context. But God yells at Ned, and Ned says, like, "Oh no, what's next?" And then like Maude appears next to him with the devil and says, like, "Oh, come back to bed, honey."
Ooh.
What I've not done here, for some reason, is draw the devil Ned. Like, I have drawn him, but I haven't drawn them together, which would have been a nice image.
Yes, but it's a groovy one, and we will come to it, so I won't touch too much on it here, but it's something that is stayed in the imaginations of many artists, and lots of Maude art does touch on that devilish part of that. Though in some pictures the devil's very ripped. In yours, you've made him a reasonable size, so Ned doesn't get too self-conscious.
Precisely.
And here we have, I think I can see easily what this is, because we've encountered this once already during the Disco Stew episode. This is the statue of Maude from Praiseland that people bow in front of and get shown a glimpse of heaven. But we're seeing it face forward as they would see it.
Yes.
Yeah, I tried to make the lines thicker to replicate, like statue material. Also, do you know what the plaque says?
I do.
Teaches a lot about Maude.
She taught us the joy of shame and the shame of joy.
And that sums her up almost perfectly, I would say.
Give me a little bit of an explanation as to why you think that sums her up.
Yeah, there's a lot of duality. There's a lot of duality of the things like she does. Like, she enjoys sucking the fun out of the room. People can't have too much fun. You've got to bring it down a notch. And she does think that like piety is a reasonable an enjoyable way of life.
Maybe. And at times she does seem like she enjoys and smiles at some things that should be shaming, such as her husband falling over or Homer Simpson screaming stuff.
Exactly.
Last one for today, I believe. Oh no, there's two more. Last one, but one. So here, I'm going to briefly talk us through what we've got going on here.
This is one of the very first ones that I did, which you can really tell, to be honest, especially on that like Chinese market looking Ned. You see him being sold next to like an orange Teletubby or a bat who says, "Don't eat ham, buddy."
Why, are you saying this is kind of like he looks like a knockoff?
Yeah, my original thing with these was to try and make them look like the World of Springfield figures, like the hair, Maude's hair being more circular. I don't know why her lips are black. Rod and Todd are bad too. They're pretty much both garbage.
Both Kerbopple and Rod have this weird thing where one eye is much bigger than the other. Yeah. Is that intentional?
No, I think I was just trying to get to grips with it. With some, I would just look at like a side, like a normal picture of them, and try and just guess what they would look like from the front. So sometimes I would forget what I was doing and the eyes would just be different sizes. And I always just did them in pen straight away.
I think it's quite a unique take on Maude. She's got there's a little bit of an interpretation. It's not quite Maude, but you know who it is.
Not the best. Possibly the worst one, actually. The dog's there. I don't think we've talked about the dog yet.
Really?
After Edna died, they got a dog called Baz, which was another permanent change for the Flanders.
You have mentioned the dog before, but we'll have to come back to the dog another time. Who is the Asian lady and the ponytailed Flanders? Who are they?
Oh, they're Ned's parents. She's not Asian. She's just got the kind of Maude-style eyes, and she's a hippie, so she's kind of dressed like Yoko Ono.
Yeah, I thought it was a picture of Yoko Ono. I think it's cool. Maybe you similar to how they did some later Simpsons things using the early Simpsons drawings. Maybe you can do some face-forward drawings using these initial face-forward ideas. I'm going to keep that last one. I'm going to keep that last one for the next batch. And we're going to have to launch straight into our song to finish this up. Who's going first?
Me.
Yeah.
Baz.
On a tower shooting, blam, blam, blam.
Food fight.
Wide-eyed Neddy, Marge grasping my shoulder.
Breathe through your damn mouth.
Breathe through your damn mouth, wobble nose.
It's a Geo.
Quick 9 at the pitch and putt.
Flanderific.
I guess. Oh, ouch, boom. I guess he didn't see me.
Victuals.
I've got a duck-like calm look all over my Maude face.
Goofballs.
I as a kite, everyone goofballs.
What Ned did.
This is a house of love and shame of joy.
Joy shame.
That's beautiful. Hey, that guy is right.
Rats.
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 Rats. Raccoons in the pot.
Yeah.
We did it. Struggle. It was an uphill battle. Unlucky for some, but not unlucky for us. We managed to get to the end of episode 13. Hooray for everyone.